Okay, hey everybody, this is Raleigh, and today we are talking about jumping. So, jumping, pretty simple. There's horizontal and there's vertical. So, either your jump is traveling horizontally or it is traveling vertically. And it's important you understand those two directions because they're going to determine how the body needs to move and which direction the center of mass needs to travel. And so it changes the technique or the type of jump. Horizontal jumping should be easier because you're staying closer to the center of the earth. Vertical jumping is harder because you're moving more against gravity. Now, power in jumps. Okay, so how you start the jump determines the outcome. So there's some things to think about. So if you start in a stand, and you relax into the drop and fire the muscles of the jump, you're going to be using the contraction of the muscles to actually help the body move away from the surface. So some people, when they stand and they drop, they actually are decelerating themselves or engaging their muscles as they lower down, and this has a slower turnaround time to activate the other side to get the other muscles to fire to make you jump. So the faster you can drop into the jump, then all you have to do is fire one side of your body or the muscles that cause the jump to happen, and by firing those muscles, you're actually decelerating the fall with activating a jump. So it's more efficient in the process. So if you're going to start in a stand, you need to learn how to relax, or just like you're going to fall right to the ground, nothing's engaged, you just fall and then fire. If you start in the down position and fire the muscles, then you are working against gravity and having to go up, and you're not going to jump as high, but that's a way of getting a static position. I'm in a down position, and then I just have to quick fire and see the explosion. Timing of the extension of arms and legs is important because the arms and legs need to extend together or be in sync with one another in order to be moving the center of mass in a direction. When you're out of sync with your arms and legs, then you don't tend to move your center of mass as a unit. So it's important to find the timing, the rhythm of that. Okay, so here's a picture of your foot. If you start looking from left to right, it's just an abstract image, but you basically flat on your foot, your heel comes off the ground, you're on the ball of the foot, then the foot comes off the ground, then you go back to the ball of the foot, then your heel is slightly off the floor, so you're on just a little more of the foot, and then you go back flat. It's important to understand this timing because this is really the ability to jump. From the ball of your foot, I'm going to bring my cursor. So from here, where you're on the ball of your foot and you push off the floor and you get to here, this is actually using the big toe to generate, and jumping oftentimes does not use the big toe. So it's actually really important to use your big toe to finish off the jump, the explosiveness. That will actually improve a little bit, but it's going to improve it enough to actually make a difference when you're trying to produce an outcome or result. So this also phase right here from going flat-footed to heel off the ground. Oftentimes you'll see that this point to this point does not happen. People will land right here and leave their heel floating off the ground slightly, and they need to get comfortable putting the weight back on the back of their foot onto their heel. And so this transition, but also here, when I saw vertical jumping, if you look YouTube, max vertical jump, you'll see that this exists actually pretty early on in those that are trying to max vertical jump. They'll do this. It's like they get here, they get to this point, they actually are in it for a pretty long amount of time in comparison to how quickly they pass through everything else. And so that little bit of adjustment on the up is important. But on the down, if you stay in this position, you start to create ankle problems because the heel never drops and you never weight the foot and you're always keeping the weight here. And that leads into pressures on the knee and everything. So just putting that in there. Okay, so long jump. Long jump's traveling horizontally. Always, always, always do things horizontally before you do things vertically. Why? Because it's easier to understand how to get a result. Okay, you're standing on a dot, jump long, and you can see what the distance is. You can jump, you can mark it, but you jump vertically, you're not going to be marking your vertical jump. Also, your mechanics to jump vertically require a lot more, and it's harder to see and understand how all those mechanics affect one another. If you jump long, then you can adapt and adjust a lot easier. It's just you're not moving against gravity the same way. So the goal is to pull the center of mass forwards and upwards in a long jump. Okay, so your center of mass, I should have put an object here. We're just going to pretend like your center of mass is here. Okay, somewhere around here. Let's just pretend where the star is. So the goal is to pull that. So you're kind of behind it in the loading phase, and then you're going to jump and you're going to have to pull it. So the center of mass is actually going to get behind your body, and we'll see it position at the end. So your squat jump, this is more of a vertical position. The goal is to pull the center of mass vertical. Okay, keep the hips down below the shoulders. Oftentimes you'll see people try to get their hips up higher. Basically, they won't bend their knees well enough. They won't bend enough at the ankles. They just drop their chest and their head and their butts in the air. We want the chest to be as up as best as we can, but you still need to be reaching for the ground. So it's kind of this awkward fighting against position where you got to have the hips up in order to compensate for the lack of ability, essentially, but you're trying to keep the chest up as well. Lunge jump, you've got alternating legs. Back foot is flexed. So you're in a lunge, you jump in the air, you switch legs when you land, and then you go down and lower into a lunge position. The goal is to pull the center of mass vertical. Travel happens on the step. Keep the knee off the floor. Bring the feet together in the air. Lunge jump. So a vertical jump actually looks a little bit different than if we look at a long jump. So see where the chest is? It's a little bit more upright. Vertical jump, your actually chest is going to be down a little bit more. The arm swing is a little bit more behind you because you actually want to use more arms. And you can look at the videos. If you look at football players who are doing the max vertical jump, they actually have the highest vert jumps usually. So you'll see a lot of this type of positioning in the loading phase. The goal is to pull the center of mass vertically, transfer the weight onto the toes by tucking the hips under. So you're going to see this position, and then they're going to tuck their hips under and their heels are going to come off the floor slightly. And it's just kind of an interesting loading phase, but it's really actually helping the body go up instead of forwards. The arm swing, those arms are going to have to move a pretty far distance. We'll talk more about that to time with the hips, the knees, and the ankles opening up straight. A knee jump is the goal to pull the center of mass vertical. This is I don't know why it says flute activation. Let's change that. This is a fast activation, speed of movement drill. So this is basically just seeing how quickly can you shape change and move. It's a good thing just to get people moving their bodies and giving them a challenge. Okay, so there's this extension. Now, the hands and feet are behind the shoulders and hips because if we were to put a center of mass target on here, let's just drop in a star. Okay, the center of mass is behind the body on these. It's over here, or it's let's just put it right here, or it's right here. Okay, so the center of mass is behind the body, and what you're trying to do is move the center of mass someplace. So hands and feet are behind the shoulders, opening the body. This puts the body in front of the center of mass, which means that the jump is pulling the center of mass instead of pushing it. And it's really important because it seems like there's a trend where the body actually wants to pull the center of mass more than it wants to push the center of mass. Hips and shoulders pull the center of mass down a linear path. So off of the first jump, if you look at the angle of the takeoff, okay, we'll just make these stars different colors. So let's go like that. Okay, so the green star, the body is traveling more vertically, and even though it's leaning backwards, that green star is actually going to go more vertical. Go watch the high vertical jumpers. You're going to see this type of leaning action. The blue star is traveling more vertical and horizontally. Okay, so then think about where that trajectory may be at a 45-degree angle. The red star is traveling more horizontally. There's a little bit more lean. And so this is also relationship with the surface and understanding where the center of mass is in relationship to the surface. So, I mean, if you just look at the feet and you look at where the stars kind of are, the green star is more over the feet, the blue star is a little bit in front of the feet, the red star is super in front of the feet. So this is going to tell you where they're going to travel. And based off of where your center of mass is in relationship to your feet will determine where you're going to travel. This really affects tumbling. So the angle of the body in the relationship to the surface determines the direction of travel, right? Okay, so arm swing. So I got this orange circle thing going on because I want you to understand how much distance the hands actually have to travel compared to the hips, knees, and ankles. So just notice the distance of the arm swing to open when you look at the distance of what the hips, knees, and ankles are going to be doing to actually open. They're not actually moving as much distance. Now the angle might actually be very similar in the sense of it's probably over 180 degrees, you know, and this is probably going to have to open over 180 degrees or something like that. Maybe it's, I don't know, I guess it's more like 90 degrees. But the distance is really where the timing comes into play because the hands are going to actually have to move incredibly fast to match the hips, knees, and ankles. So that timing really tells you if everything's working together, the center of mass will move as a unit. If something is off, then it's actually pulling the center of mass. So here's some jumping complexes. There's kind of some ideas on things to put together for a variety of jumps. So the long jump, squat jump, lunge jump, forwards and backwards. It's really good for building endurance strength and volume. The long jump, generally you want to be able to jump the distance from your feet to your head. So if you're laying on the ground, feet to head distance in a long jump is where you're at. If you want to be proficient in your abilities, then you need to be able to jump from your feet to your hands fully stretched out. That's the distance you're trying to get for a long jump. And that really tells you your ability to do front handsprings or layouts or other things like that. Box jumps up something, or just box jumps up, let's say, is more of like a 1 rep max. You're going to do maybe 3 to 5, but you're not going to do a lot, and it's really just to test what you have. It's not really developing something. Box jump over something, you're going to have lower a lower height so that you can get more volume in if you want to actually improve. Rebounds, we didn't really talk much about rebounds, but it's really the idea that you're keeping your legs straight and just using your ankles essentially in the spring floor. And it's really going to be about being quick, fast through your feet, which means there's not a lot of ankle movement. Varieties, though, is like to bounce forwards, backwards, to bounce side to side, to switch your feet as you're bouncing, to step side to side, more like what you'd see on a jump rope kind of movement, where one foot gets picked up as it goes side to side. Apart and together, they're apart on the floor and together in the air, and you're just rebounding, moving your feet. Then you got jumps for shapes, so like straight, tuck, straddle, pike, wolf, split, split, jump full, going both directions. This is just for shape in endurance. It's good to go through all the shapes and see if somebody can hit the whole series. We usually do 5 of each to see what they have. So it's kind of a rebounding exercise with shape changes. Candlestick, straight, squat, lunge. This is more of a conditioning circuit that you kind of do where you say they do 5. So you do candlestick, single leg, you stand up and jump. Then you do squat, jump, tuck, jump, and then you do a lunge jump, a lunge, tuck, jump, which means basically you're in the lunge position. You jump in the air and then you tuck your legs up, kind of more like a herky in cheerleading. But you do 5 of each and then you do 3 rounds. And that's a very good way of getting those legs working for you. So tuck jump. Okay, so the hips and knees need to be 90 degrees or less. The knees have to be higher than the hips. The arms forwards to control the core. Arms can be in high if you're doing trampoline, but it's really important that you understand that the arms forwards is in rhythm and in sync with the legs. So you're closing the shoulder angle and you're closing the hip angle. And now you're working those angles together. So it's a very good base level tuck jump to learn this way so that when you open the shoulders and open the hips, they're working together. You want to get the hips and shoulders working together because that's really where tumbling comes from. So straight open. So if you think about this position to here, now the shoulders open and the hips open and they're actually working together, right? So going from the tuck to the straight teaches the hip and shoulder throw needed in the majority of all skills. And if you hear a giant rumble in the background, it's the water being turned on. All right, we're going to keep going. So pike jump. So hips less than 90 degrees. So you need to be as closed as you can in those hips. The legs need to be parallel with the floor, and then the arms are optional. It's best to just be reaching for your toes in the process. The wolf jump has one leg that is bent, but it's basically a pike jump, but one leg is bent. The knees need to be together. You're looking for that level and then that closed ankle. Sheep jump is like a ring leap or a ring jump, but you're arching backwards, trying to put your feet over your head, and there's a lot of bendingness that happens, which probably actually isn't healthy for the back or spine, so you got to be particular with who can do this well, but everyone should at least be trying it because it motivates them to work on their flexibility. So straight open, the arms down allow the arms to be used to lift on connections. So depending on what you're doing, it's important to get the arms in a prepped position. So if you're doing some sort of shape and you're finishing in, or you need to connect, you need to find a straight position with your arms down so you can throw them back up to get into your position, or finish with your arms up so you can throw them down to get into your position. So just understand where the arms are in relationship to the body, and then how you're going to be connecting the next skill. This is a ring leap, so very much like the sheep, but you just have one leg in front. Just want to throw that in there. Foot's at the head height, split is flat and level. This is a great leap to be working towards because it's going to force students' regular leaps to improve. Split jump. Now this is the key. Looks like my slides are kind of out of order, but split jump. This is the key skill that you need to be teaching across the board, and that is they need to be able to do a flat split jump. That's it. Arms can be in second or high oblique, but a flat split jump, the arms and legs need to match and have timing, and this is really what you're working towards. So hips should be neutral. If you look at the triangle that's connecting the legs, it's vertical, not leaning, and you're going to see that most kids will lean and put that triangle on their leg. The split's flat or over flat, the chest is vertical, it's important. Arms are optional, however timing needs to be with the split action. Sasson. So the hips are the same as a split jump basically, but you're just at an angle. The lean needs to be greater than 45 degrees, not less than 45 degrees, but we want about a 45-degree angle for our purposes. Arms are optional, however timing again with the split action. So a switch leap. So I just want you to notice when you're going to do a switch leap and you have a leg change that's going to happen. Okay, so there's this leg that swings up and then you go into the leap. Okay, it looks like we're basically done. I'll show you this. So the first step, you're tall. There might be a slight lean. There's no weight on that front leg. As you go to step, okay, this is where your body needs to drop down and actually lower. And you want the step to be long because the foot that's in front, the center of mass needs to be behind that foot so that you're blocking your body and it starts to rise. The swinging leg needs to be at 45, so there's an early block. The center of mass rises into the leap. And so how you approach the switch leap is you actually need to have steps that actually are long enough. Now, some people do a takeoff with a straight leg and they're punching the ground more, and that's totally fine too. So this leg could just stay straight right here and they could just punch the ground. Not a problem, but that's a switch leap. So they're stepping, boom, switch. Okay. The arms and the legs still are trying to activate at the same time. Now, turning a leap, we don't really have to get into that right now, but turning a leap basically is making sure that you get your feet together and you're turning when you're in a straight position. So as the legs are swinging past each other, there's a moment where everything becomes straight, and that's really where the turn actually happens. So there you have it. That's leaping, jumps. Very, very important to work on the coordination and the timing of leaps and jumps, and you're going to see a mass improvement in tumbling if you can improve on these things.